draft is over. There are 3 days left until the start of NBA free agency, and Brian Windhorst is here for a Windy watch. Windy, let's start in L.A.
Yeah, so August 2nd is a very important day for the Lakers. Why? Because that's the day Luka Doncic can extend his contract. He only has one guaranteed year left on his deal. Ideally, the Lakers want to get him into a multi-year deal, and they need to do some work on their roster before they bring that offer to him. Specifically, they really need to add a center because that's what Luka likes to play with, especially one that can be a lob threat and can protect him defensively. The Lakers know this. The league knows this. Let's see if they can get it done. There's also some business over the weekend for superstar LeBron James. He has a option to pick up and decision on a $53 million number for next year. Last year in this exact spot, LeBron opted out of his contract and offered the Lakers that he would take a pay cut if they could find some free agents to go for. They didn't do that at that time. This year, that offer is not on the table, and the expectation is that LeBron will pick up this option and stay at $53 million with a no-trade clause. But there will be no new contract for Austin Reeves. He has turned down a 4-year, $90 million extension, and he is headed for free agency in 2026. Now, that is not something that was unexpected. He is limited by contract rules for how much he can sign for now. So it was always expected he would turn this down and try to have another good year and chase a 9-figure contract next year.
Sure. I mean, who wouldn't? Hey, look, the Lakers have definitely they went into the postseason with a little bit of momentum, but it didn't cash it in. In order to get from where they ended the season to title contention, Bobby, what do they need to do?
Well, as Brian said, they need to get a center here, and this is what they have. They have $60 million in expiring contracts. They have the $5.7 million tax mid-level extension. Here's the list of centers that are potentially out there. Certainly Jackson Hayes, who was on the roster last year, Luke Cornett, Mason Plumlee, some of these older veterans, Larry Nance, Clint Capella, Al Horford, of course. Not the most robust center market out there, as you can see here, but they have that tax mid-level exception. They have a 2031 or 2032 first to go out. Remember, they tried to go out and get Mark Williams at the deadline. That failed. Mark Williams goes to Phoenix here. So there are resources to go out there for the Lakers here, but they're certainly competing against a lot of other teams. And as Brian said, there's a priority with Luka extension eligible August 2nd to put the right pieces around him and LeBron.
August 2nd, a little more than a month away. Tim Bontemps, what should the Lakers' focus be here over the next month?
Well, Dan, as Bobby said, they have to get a center, right? They have to find somebody who's a lob threat, in particular for Luka Doncic. That's the kind of player he's always thrived with. But this team needs several things. They need more shooting on the perimeter. They need more defense on the perimeter to be able to stop some of the elite perimeter scorers in the Western Conference. And they have to find that rim protector on defense who could also be a lob threat. That's a lot of stuff for a team that, as Bobby said, only has that taxpayers mid-level exception, which isn't that big, to go out and sign guys at free agency outside of minimums, and then a couple of draft assets in trade. Now, they do have a lot of expired contracts. They do have some stuff they can move around with, but at the end of the day, we just saw the Oklahoma City Thunder with an incredibly deep roster cruise through the Western Conference playoffs for the most part, outside of a 7-game series with Denver, to get to the finals. That is the bar the Lakers have to clear. They have a lot of work to do if they want to be seen as a team that's truly on the level of the Thunder in the West.
One name to keep an eye on as we enter the weekend, Sunday is the last day for players with their options, is Dorian Finney-Smith.
Yes.
He's got a $14 million player option. The Lakers cannot afford to lose him. If Finney-Smith goes out in the free agent market, there are going to be teams out there with that non-tax mid-level exception available to offer him.
All right, so big couple of weeks for the Lakers. I want to shift to another big offseason storyline, Windy, and that's in Milwaukee. What's going on with the Bucks?
Yeah, the whole league is sort of keeping at least one eye on the Bucks. So they have 7 free agents, 4 of which you could say would be their sort of core players, guys like Brook Lopez, guys like Gary Trent, potentially Bobby Portis if he opts out of his contract over the weekend. And look, Giannis has made it clear he wants to compete for championships. The Bucks, as constructed last year, were a team in the middle of the pack, and that was before they lost Dame Lillard to an Achilles injury. Now, Giannis has not asked for a trade. The Bucks are not interested in trading for him. Right now, there is no stress in that. But if the Bucks don't reassemble a team that is viewed as a contender in the Eastern Conference, that may be something that Giannis revisits, and that's one thing the league is definitely watching.
So, Tim, what does that next month look like for the Bucks then, if they're trying to convince Giannis that they're serious about winning again?
Well, it's going to be a real grab bag search to try to find enough guys to do what Brian said, which is make this team competitive enough in the Eastern Conference to make it seem like they could be a home court advantage team. And even with Jason Tatum's Achilles tear, even with Tyrese Halliburton's Achilles tear, it's hard to see for me how the Bucks are going to be good enough to do that. They have even less draft assets than the Lakers. They have very limited financial flexibility. It's unclear if they're even able to go into the luxury tax, and they've got over $130 million tied up in 3 players: Giannis Antetokounmpo, Damian Lillard, who's probably out for next season, and Kyle Kuzma. That is not a lot of wiggle room to work with if, again, the goal is to really be a threat in the East. And by the way, these guys lost in 5 games in the first round of the Pacers and were pretty far away from being competitive in that series with Giannis playing out of his mind. So there's a ton of work for the Bucks to do. And again, very limited financial and draft assets to do so. This is going to be as hard a challenge as we've seen in the NBA for a while to turn the Bucks into a championship team with the assets these guys have at their disposal. The
question that follows, Tim, is if they don't, then are we looking at a situation where Giannis will want out?
Well, it's impossible to know exactly what Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to say, but my stance on this the whole offseason has been, let's see where the Bucks sit on August 1st. Let's see how they do in July. Let's see what they can get, and then let's revisit things in a few weeks and see where all of this stands. Because the Bucks in the past have not had a lot of assets and have found ways to be aggressive and go out and fill in the roster. Gary Trent last summer was a good example. He was a guy that was expected to be, somewhere in the mid-teens as a free agent. They got him on the minimum, and they're going to have a lot of playing time to offer. They're going to have being able to play next to Giannis Antetokounmpo and get a lot of attention taken off you to be able to produce as something to offer. They have some things they can offer to players to come there and play, but at the end of the day, they have to find a way to get it done, and let's see where this sits on August 1st.
Every time there has been some speculation regarding Giannis, Drew Holiday, they go out and acquire him. Damian Lillard, they go out and acquire him. Giannis signs 2 extensions here. The problem right now is there's not another move for that magnitude of player because of what they don't have. They have a 2031 or 2032 pick to trade, similar to the Lakers. They have the Kuzma contract, but as Tim said, 80% of their salary is tied up in there, and they have all these free agents, so they're going to have to prioritize who they want to bring back.
Yeah, and I'm an actions over words guy. Over the draft, the Milwaukee Bucks 2026 first-round pick was used by the New Orleans Pelicans as a big trade piece to acquire Derek Queen, to move up 10 in the draft. And in fact, when they did that, the rest of the league was like, oh my God, I can't believe that they paid so much. The reason the 2026 Bucks draft pick is viewed as so valuable by the league is that the league does not believe the Bucks are going to pull this off. Right. Now, they could be wrong, but that's what people are watching.
And if they don't pull it off, you're looking at a situation where one of the storylines later this summer could be, where's Giannis going to go? What would be a team you'd watch?
Well, listen, there's a reason why San Antonio still has a lot of their draft assets and players, and they were not heavily involved in the Kevin Durant trade.
There's a reason why the Knicks were on Kevin Durant's preferred list and said, thanks, but no thanks.
So as Windy opened up this segment by saying, the entire league is paying attention to what's going on in Milwaukee, and so will we over the coming weeks. Let's finish with another team that's surrounded by uncertainty. Windhorst, the Knicks, don't have a coach. What's going on there?
Yeah, so their next candidate up for an interview is James Borrego. He's currently lead assistant with the New Orleans Pelicans, former head coach of the Charlotte Hornets, a well-regarded, longtime top coach in the league. Comes out of the Greg Popovich tree. Was interviewed and a finalist for the Cleveland Cavaliers job last summer. And look, they interviewed Mike Brown. They interviewed Mike Inori, assistant with the Timberwolves. They interviewed Taylor Jenkins. They're going through a process, and we're through the draft. This is unusual to still not have a coach as free agency begins, but I would say it was unusual to fire a coach that just led your team to the conference finals.
Yeah, so just kind of going against the grain here are the Knicks. What do you make of the way they're handling this?
Well, they've got 7 of their best players on their contract, and free agency starts on Sunday. On Monday, excuse me. The concern with me is they don't have a coach in place, and their priority is their depth. And when you're going to meet with free agents and players, basically you have to go bargain shopping. What are you selling them on? Who's the coach going to be? We went through this in 2014 when I was with the Nets. We had traded Jason Kidd, who was the head coach at the time, to Milwaukee, and then we had no head coach going into free agency. A little bit different. We wound up hiring Lionel Hollins, and that did hamper us a little bit as far as how we could approach players that we were willing to sign.
Just not having one in place at the time of the signing.
Yeah, there's a big difference as a team that's got $60 million in cap space and is going to meet with marquee free agents, and you don't have a coach compared to what New York has, where you do have the 7 players. But I do think there is a priority to get a coach in place pretty soon here.
Tim, how do you see this playing out in New York?
I mean, look, Graz, here's the bottom line for the Knicks. When you fire Tom Thibodeau after making the conference finals for the first time in a quarter century, there's only one thing that's acceptable, which is making the NBA Finals and competing for a championship next season. If the Knicks hire a coach over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, whenever, and that coach gets them to the NBA Finals, everyone's going to forget about their process. If they hire a coach and they lose in the first or second round, they don't go as far as they did last year with Tibbs, it's going to be, why did the Knicks fire Tibbs? What are these guys doing? What's going to happen next? So the process has been messy so far, but as Brian said earlier, actions over words. If the action winds up being getting the Knicks where they want to go, this will all be forgotten. The goal now for the Knicks has to be to find a way to get a coach that's going to check those boxes for them, and there isn't an obvious one out there to get. That's why, despite being an attractive job with a very talented roster, with an incredibly deep-pocketed owner, this job is still open a month after Tom Thibodeau was let go.
Time to run the floor around the NBA. We have Windy here, of course, with all the latest. Windy, let's start in Denver.
Yeah, Nikola Jokic has a contract decision coming up here. Owner Josh Kroenke he did say that he is going to offer Jokic a 3-year, $212 million contract extension in the next few days, but he's not sure if he's going to sign it. Now, that isn't so much a commentary on the way the Nuggets are operating, which itself is a little bit questionable, the way they've handled their roster the last couple of years. Jokic can wait until next summer and sign a more lucrative extension. However, when your 3-time MVP passes on an extension, it's a little bit unnerving. So we'll see how this plays out with Jokic. And then we have big positive news potentially coming here for the Suns. Devin Booker is in position to sign a 2-year, $150 million extension, which would smash all existing records, at least for the moment, on a per-year annual salary, $75 million a year. He is expected to get that offer and to sign it. The Suns have some work to do on this roster, but Booker has been highly engaged with them this offseason on their coaching search and their Kevin Durant trade.
All right, run the floor now. We pass the ball to Tim Bontemps. Tim, what do you got on Ace Bailey?
Well, this could be a very interesting developing story in the NBA. Me and Jonathan Gavoni reported yesterday that Ace Bailey told one of the teams in the top 5 in the draft that he was not willing to play for them and would not report to them if they drafted him. Now, we will see whether that team was the Utah Jazz in the coming days ahead. The Jazz open their summer league in Salt Lake City next Saturday. They would love to have Ace Bailey out there on the court playing in front of the home fans in Salt Lake City as they open their summer league journey with Walter Clayton Jr., their other first-round pick. But it remains to be seen whether Ace Bailey is going to report to Utah, whether he's going to be around the Jazz. And while right now this is kind of a fun little interesting developing subplot in the NBA, if he's not around the team by Monday, when they start getting ready for training camp and they start having a press conference to announce these guys, things will get a lot more spicy with this situation.
Fascinating situation up at the top of the draft. Bobby, if you were running the Utah Jazz and your first-round pick didn't show up first day of summer camp or this Monday, how do you handle that?
Well, I think a couple things here. First, they're going to tender him an offer, and that basically he will be their property as far as moving forward. He won't be able to re-enter the draft or sign with another team. Dan, the contract is for 4 years, $40 million. That's a lot of money, $9 million. The second thing is, if I'm Danny Ainge and Austin Ainge, I'm bringing Ace Bailey in, no representation, and I'm going to bring him in a room, and we're going to talk, and I want to know if you want to be here or not, and go from there. Because you look at the video here, this looks like a player that wants to be in Utah, right? So we'll see how this plays out over the next few days. It's a unique situation. We rarely see this right now, but the Jazz do certainly have, with the contract here, I don't want to say leverage. You never say leverage because when a player doesn't show up, it's kind of a little bit of egg on your face. It's certainly there, but they do have his rights as far as moving forward.
If he doesn't want to be there and he doesn't show up and this starts to get ugly, do you see the Jazz ultimately giving in?
I do not. I do not think any team in this situation would give in. They have the ultimate position, and I do not see Danny Ainge giving in. And here's the bottom line. The Utah Jazz play in Salt Lake City, and I say this as somebody who lives in the middle of the country. They cannot worry about whether a player wants to be in Salt Lake City or whether he loves the fit on their roster. They have to draft and develop the most talented players they can. That is why they took him, despite him not working out, and they will absolutely not budge on this. And eventually, Ace Bailey is going to be a Utah Jazz. We'll just see how long it takes for him and his representation to figure that out.
Tim, tie this up for us. How do you see this all ending? Where is this headed?
I think it's heading with Ace Bailey playing for the Jazz, Graz. And here's the thing. The irony of this situation is that the best thing that could have happened to Ace Bailey, ironically, is him landing with the Utah Jazz. They've got a fantastic coach in Will Hardy, a guy who can develop his game. He is going to a team that has a gaping hole on the wing for exactly his kind of skill set as a big scorer who can make difficult shots, as a guy who believes he could be a number one option on a team scoring-wise. The Jazz are going to give him the ball as much as he'll want next year to be the focal point of their offense. He could be a contender for Rookie of the Year with guys like Dylan Harper and Cooper Flagg. Like, this is a great situation for Ace Bailey. It's like Bobby said, I think they just have to get him to Salt Lake City, and if they do, this is all going to work out just fine.
Yeah, who knows? We might all be concerned about nothing. We'll obviously start to find out more about this next week when Summer League gets underway in Utah.